Why is this man still just standing in here? Dude, you're allowed to leave, you know? Yeah, you are allowed to leave.
See you later.
You don't have to be trapped in with the rest of the animals, my dude. Alright, is there a spot to sit over here? No? You know, I think we're just gonna... I don't know, we're just gonna stand on the edge of this fucking cliff and read some books today. Yep, that's the move. Yeah, we're reading some more books today. I don't know what books we're reading. Eventually we're gonna have to start the series on the real Baron Zaya, which is terrifying. Yeah, let's see what's on the list for now. If we head towards the bottom, the Warp in the West. Alright, 30 pages. We can do the Warp in the West, and then maybe one other smaller book. Like the Seed? Nope. Can't do the Seed. Could do the Refugees. Yeah, we'll do those two books. The Warp in the West, as well as the Refugees. The Warp in the West, a report compiled by Ulvius Tarot, Blade's archivist. Secret, for your eyes only. Could this be the inspiration for J. Cole's album? Probably not. Let me offer my congratulations to your lordship for your recent appointment as ambassador to the court of Wayrest. Your lordship asked me for a review of existing Blades accounts from 3rd Era 417 concerning the Warp in the West, and for a summary of the current state of affairs there. Since your lordship was in Blackmarsh serving in the staff of Admiral Cesorius at the time, you probably know of these events only from imperial proclamations and chapel declarations, which identify this period as the Miracle of Peace. During the Miracle of Peace, according to official accounts, the formerly war-racked Iliac Bay region was transformed overnight from a patchwork of squabbling duchies and petty kingdoms into the peaceful modern counties of Hammerfell, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium. The Miracle of Peace, also known as the Warp in the West, is celebrated as the product of the miraculous interventions of Stendar, Mara, and Akatosh to transform this troublesome region into peaceful, well-governed imperial counties. The catastrophic destruction of landscape and property and the large loss of life attending upon this miracle is understood to have been tragic and beyond mortal comprehension. Inasmuch as this account confirms and validates the current borders of these counties and identifies the rulers and boundaries of these counties as ordained by the Nine, the Miracle of Peace serves imperial objectives of peaceful consolidation of ancient petty states and sovereigns into manageable imperial jurisdictions. The other remarkable features of these events: mass disappearances, armies mysteriously transported hundreds of miles or completely annihilated, titanic storms, and celestial phenomena, apparent local discontinuities of time, fit comfortably into the notion that these events are part of a vast, mysterious divine intervention. However, this is only the public account of these events, and as you may suspect, it conflicts with many other accounts. In short, while this explanation suits imperial policy, it has little historical validity. Your lordship should know that the Blades have concluded there is no plausible historical account of these events, and despairs that a plausible historical account shall ever be produced. The Blades have concluded that a miracle occurred insofar as the events are inexplicable, but the Blades strongly doubt the miracle was of divine origin. There is good reason to believe that the ruling families of the 4 modern Iliac Bay counties had forewarning of the event. There is also some evidence that some of these ruling families may have been directly or indirectly responsible for the event. We do not know the exact sequence of actions that produced the event, although we are confident that the totem artifact was involved, and that a Blades agent was involved in employing that artifact. We unfortunately lost contact with that agent immediately after the event. His report might have gone some way to resolving the contradictory and paradoxical accounts of the event. The Blades have on file few reports from agents dating from the Warp in the West period. Most of our agents were lost in the initial dislocations, and others were lost in the confusion after the event. I present a few of these reports to give to give you a general sense of their limitations, including the reports of your diplomatic predecessor, Lord Strail. You will have had access to other private and rumored accounts of the period. I believe you will agree that these documents raise more questions than they answers. The reports of Hammerfell, Agent Briarbird. I was on assignment in the Alakare Desert, a few miles south of Bergama on the 9th of Frostfall. I was encamped as it was still early morning, when I felt the ground shake so violently. I was thrown to the ground. Dazed, I was aware of a great roar of a sandstorm, which alarmed me, as I had been on a high dune and had seen nothing like that on the horizon. It was on me before I was even on my knees, burying me in my camp. When I crawled my way out to the sand, I realized that I must make haste and get to Bergama as soon as possible, as all my food and water had been swept away. The sun was just rising as I began, like I said. When I reached Bergama, it was nightfall. The town was in chaos, filled with the soldiers of Sentinel. The lord of Bergama's fortress was in ruins. There had been an attack, but no one had seen it, only the invasion that followed it. The soldiers of Queen Akarithi of Sentinel refused to be interviewed about how they had accomplished this sneak attack, but I came to learn that the whole of northern Hammerfell now belonged to them. Even stranger, I discovered that my walk from sunrise to sundown had not taken me not 1 day, but 2. It was now the 11th day of the month, not the 10th. I had lost a day somewhere, and so apparently had everyone else, except Acarinthi's soldiers, who somehow were aware of the correct date. I since have concluded that they have received advance warning, and so were better prepared to deal with the strange confusion of time and dates associated with the warp. The reports of High Rock Agent Grey Lady. I was, at the time of the warp, undercover as a witch in the Skeffington Coven of Fergius in central High Rock. In order to give my report, I had volunteered for an expedition to gather supplies, which would allow me the freedom to reach my contact in Camlorn. I was traveling northeast along the foothills of the Rothgarian Mountains on the 9th of Frostfall, when I felt a great heat behind me, like a fire. I turned, but I regret to say I cannot tell you what I saw. The healers tell me my eyes were burned out of my sockets. I think I must have fallen into a state of semi-consciousness, for I distinctly remember falling as the ground seemed to give way beneath me. Then there was a series of explosions in the distance, to the south, and I heard high whistling noises that were getting louder, coming closer. I had my shield with me, and fortunately anticipated that volleys of some sort were falling from the sky. Though I could not see them, I could hear them coming from a distance away, and was able to use my shield to block them from striking me. The assault stopped suddenly, and I could smell smoke. I learned later that most of the forest of Yakolin in Phegius had caught fire, in an inferno that started further south than Dania in the Elysian Hills. Fortunately, I kept my bearings and moved north, finally reaching a temple in the wilderness where my wounds were healed, as well as they could be. It was there I learned that there had been a 3-way clash between Daggerfall, Wayrest, and Orsinium not far from where I had been, and that the land midway between the kingdoms had been decimated. The report of Ambassador Lord Nagan Strail. His Imperial Majesty had sent me on a delicate errand, the details of which I cannot convey in this unsecure report, but my official capacity was to be the Emperor's ambassador to the court of Wayrest. From there, I was to meet with an old friend, Lady Brisenia, who was already in the vicinity. Foregoing any attempt at stealth, I was on an Imperial barge, sailing westward on the Bjorsay, the morning of the 9th of Frostfall. I remember it was a slightly chilly day, but the sky was very blue. We had just passed the delightful riverside village of Candlemas when the captain sounded the alarm. There in front of us was a colossal wall of water, at least 30 feet high. It smashed our barge to splinters before any of us had a chance to react. I woke up on the shore, having been rescued by one of my servants who had miraculously not lost consciousness. He and I, and only one other man, were the only survivors. I thought at first that it was suspiciously similar to what happened to another agent of ours on High Rock, but a short time before, where a freak storm had shipwrecked him in the Iliac Bay near Privateer's Hold. Furious and determined to see if similar forces were at work, I began a quick march to Wayrest. The march, however, was not so terribly quick. The villages all along the Busse were on fire, and battles raged between the orcs of Orsinium and the soldiers of King Eadwire and the formerly independent principality of Gavadan, just east of Wayrest. I am an accomplished mage, and quite able to defend myself, but it took the better part of a week to make it those few miles to Wayrest. King Eadwire and his queen Berenziah were celebrating their great victories when I arrived. By then, I had gathered the barest facts of the matter, that simultaneously there were 7 great battles in the Iliac Bay, and no one could describe them at all, only their blood-soaked aftermath. To summarize, on the 9th of Frostfall, there had been 44 independent kingdoms, counties, baronies, and dukedoms surrounding the Iliac Bay. If one includes the unconquered territories of the Hrothgarian Mountains, the Dragontail Mountains, the High Rock seacoast, the Isle of Balfiri, and the Alakir Desert. On the 11th of Frostfall, there were but 4. Daggerfall, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium. And all the points where they met lay in ruins, as the armies continued to do battle. I was determined to find the truth from the king, even if I had to be a most undiplomatic diplomat to do it. Eadwire, though a generally jovial sort, had blustered, saying he did not want to give out military secrets. The queen, ever calm with those unreadable red eyes of hers, told me, "We do not know." I think it is safe to assume that Berenziah did not tell me everything, but the facts of her story, which I later verified after pointed interviews in Daggerfall, Sentinel, and Orsinium, was that they had learned that a certain powerful ancient weapon was going to be activated. I shan't give the name of it here, out of fear that it would be used against Wayrest. The king had attempted to buy it from the young adventurer who had discovered its whereabouts. Eadwire believed, as it turns out quite rightly, that other powers in the Bay had also attempted to win ownership of this device. What happened then, as Berenziah said, we do not know. I'm pretty sure these are the events of maybe Arena? I think this is like the conclusion to the events of Arena, but I'm not entirely sure. Or one of the Elder Scrolls games, I'm not too sure about that. The morning of the 9th and the morning of the 11th somehow merged through some sort of warp in the west, and Wayrest found themselves at war. Their land had expanded threefold, but they were under attack by Daggerfall to the west, Orsinium to the east, and Sentinel to the south. There had been no time to understand what had happened, the king said. They had simply reacted, sending their armies to defend their lands against these enemies whose kingdoms had also gained great territorial advantage. The battles continued on, now months later, as I returned to the Imperial City to make my report. What more do I have to say? They are bloody, violent clashes, as is always the case with modern warfare, but I have been to the black and desolate no-man's land between the 4 remaining kingdoms. No mortal army caused that devastation. I can say that the force that shook the Iliac Bay on the 10th of Frostfall, 3rd Era 417, was infinitesimally greater than the power these mighty kingdoms are wielding today. I can say that there were other strange events on that day which kept the kingdoms from breaking free of the Empire, and accomplished likely more besides. And I can say there is nothing left of it, this power, this weapon, in the Bay. The warp that it created swallowed it up. Current political affairs in the Iliac Bay. Almost 20 years have passed, and the region, though transformed, has stabilized. There are no more disputed territories, and the kingdoms of Daggerfall, Wayrest, Sentinel, and Orsinium hold their new borders in relative peace. Wayrest spreads across the eastern coast of the bay, stretching from the land formerly called Anticlere to half of Guvadin. Eadwire has passed on to his ancestors, leaving his kingdom in the hands of his daughter, Elisana, who has 2 children by her royal consort, and seems likely to hold her father's lands. Your lordship may also choose to communicate directly with King Helseth and Queen Berenziah and Mournhold. Their primary preoccupations are, of course, with Morrowind's affairs, but they may still have useful observations upon Wayrest's ruling families and political environment that may aid you in your understanding of the courts of Queen Elisana. King Gortwag of Orsinium controls much of the Hrothgarian mountains, as well as the profitable river coast of the Buchet. He persists in his demands that Orsinium be recognized as an imperial province separate from High Rock. The Elder Council treats Gortwag as a recognized king and collects taxes directly from Orsinium, but officially Orsinium remains a county of High Rock, though technically it spans both the provinces of High Rock and Hammerfell. Sentinel has gained the most land, sprawling across the entire southern Iliac Bay from Ababan Gora, beyond the Dragon Tail Mountains, to the edge of Morneth, Orsinium's territory. Queen Akarithi, at her death, left her enormous kingdom to her only surviving son, Luton, who is now surely one of the most powerful kings in Tamriel. Daggerfall is still ruled by the Breton king Gothrid and the Redguard queen Obkai. Their land now encompasses all of western High Rock, from the border they share with Wayrest to Anticlair to the east, to Yakalan to the north. They have 4 children now, and are much beloved in their realm. If there are other repercussions of the mysterious warp in the west, they have not yet come to our attention in the course of 20 years of observation. I want to look this up, because I'm pretty sure this is related to some of the events in one of the Elder Scrolls games, like one of the first 2 Elder Scrolls games, but I could be wrong. Okay, yeah, so this, the Warp in the West is kind of the explanation for the events at the end of Daggerfall, which is the second Elder Scrolls game. Apparently, that game had several different endings, so this is the game's way. This book was introduced in Morrowind, of explaining, how exactly that shit panned out, at the conclusion of that game. And the what actually transpired there apparently has now been explained as the Dragon Break. So we're gonna read this book as well today. The Dragon Break Re-Examined by Faldrune. The late Third Era was a period of remarkable religious ferment and creativity. The upheavals of the reign of Uriel the Seventh were only the outward signs of the historical forces that would eventually lead to the fall of the Septim Dynasty. The so-called Dragon Break was first proposed at this time by a wide variety of cults and fringe sects across the Empire, connected only by a common obsession with the events surrounding Tiber Septim's rise to power. The founding myth, if you will, of the Septim Dynasty. The basis of the Dragon Break doctrine is now known to be a rather prosaic error in the timeline printed in the otherwise authoritative Encyclopedia Tamrielica, first published in Third Era 12, during the early years of Tiber Septim's reign. At that time, the archives of Alinor were still inaccessible to human scholars, and the extant records from the Alessian period were extremely fragmentary. The Alessians had systematically burned all the libraries they could find, and their own records were largely destroyed during the War of Righteousness. The author of the Encyclopedia Tamrielica was apparently unfamiliar with the Alessian year, which their priesthood used to record all dates. We now know this refers to the length of the long vision trances undertaken by the High Priestess, which might last anywhere from a few weeks to several months. Based on analysis of the surviving Truant scrolls, as well as murals and friezes from Alessian temples, I estimate that the Alessian order actually lasted only about 150 years, rather than the famous 1008 years given by the Encyclopedia Tamrielica. The mystery of the millennial plus rule of the Alessians was accepted, but unexplained until the spread of the Lorcan cults in the late Third Era, when the doctrine of the Dragon Break took hold. Because this dating and explanation was so widely held at the time and then repeated by historians down through today, it has come to have the force of tradition. Recall, however, the Third Era historians were already separated from the Alessians by a gulf of more than 2,000 years, and history was still in its infancy, relying on the few archives from those early days. Today, modern archaeology and palnumerology have confirmed that my own research in Alessian dating first suggested that the Dragon Break was invented in the late Third Era, based on a scholarly error, fueled by obsession with eschatology and Numidianism, and perpetuated by scholarly inertia. I feel like that didn't really explain too much of what the fuck a Dragon Break actually is, if I'm going to be honest, but okay, sure, yeah. But yeah, I suppose the Dragon Break is honestly ends up becoming the game's way of explaining, anytime that there's like multiple options or any like weird errors that the game has, as far as like the canon not making sense. I think that's I'm pretty sure that's what. I don't know if it's official or not, but that's kind of like the theory that people have used to explain the Elder Scrolls Online, because there's no history of what the fuck happened in the Elder Scrolls Online, when like there's crazy shit goes on in the Elder Scrolls Online, like absolutely fucking wild stuff that happens well before the events of, I think, any of the Elder Scrolls games. And also like the land itself, right? So Cyrodiil was supposed to be a jungle, like all jungle, and then I guess when Oblivion came out, they wanted to go more like the Lord of the Rings kind of vibe with it. So they changed that, they changed some of the lore around that, and I don't know, I guess they made it say something a long time ago happened where Cyrodiil kind of changed because of some sort of weird event from a jungle, but like the timeline of the Elder Scrolls Online is supposed to be during the time when Cyrodiil was a jungle. So it not being a jungle in the Elder Scrolls Online doesn't make any goddamn sense. So I guess either people have kind of used the Dragon Break as their way of just saying, oh, it makes sense. They're in a different timeline of events. That's all it is. They're just in a different timeline. Yeah, kind of dumb, but whatever. Yeah, it really is. Sometimes it ends up just being their kind of get out of jail free card on some of the lore. But hey, it's I guess it's better than just straight up wrong information. All right, we want to read one more book today, don't we? I feel like I've actually been reading for a while. Let's do a shorter-ish one. Or maybe a couple shorter-ish ones. The Red Book of Riddles, 3 pages. Yeah, we'll do a few short ones today. The Red Book of Riddles. This handy book doth contain all diverse manner of riddles and follies, and by means of careful study, all the spelling is wrong in this, I don't understand, and prudent scholarly, why is there just an E at the end of every fucking word? Okay. And prudent scholarly gentleman may find himself no longer discomfited by the sharp wit of his fellows. The posing and puzzling of riddles is a convention of polite aristocratic Western society. Nobles and social aspirants collect books of riddles and study them, hoping thereby to increase the chances of their appearing sly and witty in conversation. The question. It has a tail, a side, and a head. I call it what I call a snake. It has no body, and it is dead. The answer. It must be a drake. Oh, yes, of course. Cool. The question. Poets know the hearts of men and myrrh, but beasts can't know my heart. You see, this book was written by a bear. The answer... it is not a book of poetry. Wait, what? Poets know the hearts of men and myrrh, but beasts can't know my heart, you see. This book was written by a bear. Okay, these are terrible fucking riddles. The question: I gave you a sock not unlike a box, with hammers and nails all around it, 2 lids open when it knocks. The answer must have been a great hit. Yeah, I could have figured that one out. Gave you a great sock not unlike a box, with hammers and nails all around it, 2 lids open when it knocks. Yeah, maybe that one I could have understood, but the other ones are just fucking straight up stupid. Alright, what do you think? One more short, stupid book? I want to see something length. Posting of the Hunt. You know what? This one's 10 pages. That seems reasonable. The writing in the book appears to be a hasty transcription, perhaps from dictation, or copied from a longer work. The posting of the hunt. Let no man say before a witness that the hunt has not been called, nor the rites declared, or the ancient offices observed. The ritual of the incident quarry, also called the Wild Hunt, and it is an ancient rite drawing magical energy from the powerful magica stream that engulfs this realm. The creators and times of the rituals are long forgotten, but followed properly, the rite brings great power and prestige to the huntsman. The ritual pits the all-powerful huntsmen and their greater and lesser dogs against the pitiful and doomed innocent quarry, called by tradition the hare. After the mortal creature of human hunts, at once the huntsman is transported by the exquisite thrill and glory of his might and dominion over his helpless prey, and at the same time touched by the tragic, noble, and ultimately futile plight of the innocent quarry. In the highest aesthetic realization of the ritual, the ecstatic rapture of the kill is balanced by the huntsman's identification with the sadness and despair of the innocent quarry. As in pieces, the body of the innocent hare is torn, the huntsman reflects on the tragic imbalances of power and the cruel injustices of the world. What the fuck are we even talking about here? Is this like a book by Hercene? As the hunt begins, the lesser dogs assemble before the green crystal reflections of the chapel of the innocent quarry. Inside the chapel, the huntsman, the greater dogs, and the master of the hunt perform the rites that initiate the sanctity and sanctify the huntsman, the hunt, and the innocent quarry. Why does every fucking sentence seem like it's ending in the innocent quarry? Then the huntsman emerges from the chapel, displays the spear of bitter mercy, and recites the offices of the hunt. The offices explains the laws and conditions of the 4 stages of the hunt: the drag, the chase, the call, and the view to the kill. Stage 1, the drag, in which the lesser dogs drag the ground to flush at the hare. Stage 2, the chase, in which the greater hounds drive the hare before them. Stage 3, the call, in which the greater hounds trap the hare and summon the huntsman for the kill. Stage 4, the view, in which the huntsman makes the kill with the ritual spear of bitter mercy, and calls upon the master of the hunt to view the kill by ringing the town bell. The master of the hunt then bestows the bounty upon the huntsman bold who has wielded the spear of bitter mercy in the kill. The master of the hunt also calls upon the huntsman bold to name the next hare for the next hunt, though the huntsman bold himself may not participate in the next hunt. Why was stage 4 so much more complex than any other stage? The offices of the hunt, which the huntsman, master, and hounds are solemnly sworn to honor, detail the practices and conditions of the hunt. These practices and conditions, also known as the law, strictly define all details of the hunt, such as how many hounds of each sort may participate, how the spear of bitter mercy may be wielded, and so forth. In addition, the law states that the hare must have a genuine chance to escape the hunt, no matter how slim. In practice, this condition has been defined as the availability of 6 keys, which, if gathered together in the Temple of Daedric Rites, permits the hare to teleport away from the hunt, and so elude the huntsman in his spear. It is inconceivable, of course, that the hare might actually discover the keys and escape, but the forms must be observed, and tampering with the keys or cheating the hare of a genuine chance of finding or using the keys is a shameful and unforgivable betrayal of the law of the hunt. The ritual of the hunt grants the huntsman protection from all forms of attack, including mortal and immortal weapons, and sorceries of all schools. Huntsmen are cautioned, however, that the ritual does not protect the huntsman from the potent energies of his own spear, and cautions against reckless wielding of the spear in close melee, darkness, or other dangerous circumstances, for a single touch of the spear of bitter mercy means instant and certain death for innocent hare or fellow huntsmen alike. The right to name a wild hunt is a grand and grave right indeed, as all but the high Daedra lords are vulnerable to the potent sorceries of the spear of bitter mercy. The spear itself is therefore a terrible weapon, and it is forbidden to remove it from the grounds of the ritual hunt. Yeah, that's definitely a Hircine book right there, huh? I wonder if one of the quests for Hircine in the past, or maybe at some point in the future, will kind of relate to that, like where you are the one being hunted. That would be kind of cool. You're able to, I don't know, you click the 6 keys and then you get to escape or some shit. I don't know. Well, we kind of jumped around quite a bit today as far as reading all those books, but yeah, that's, what was that, 4 books technically down? Obviously, some of the books that we have remaining are only 3 pages and 6 pages and 17 pages, and then you got that one book that's like fucking 86 pages or whatever the fuck it is. So yeah, sometimes we're gonna read a lot of different books. Sometimes, one of these episodes we're just gonna read literally one book. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today. So thank you guys for watching. When next we return, we're gonna be continuing along the road. Continuing from Frenzied Camp. Yeah, till then, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And, as always...
I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope.